Hello, everyone, and welcome to another virtual activity. My name is Brandon Jewell. I'm with the CTE Foundation. Today, we've got a really unique virtual activity for you. It's a basic just discussion about Sonoma County's really unique tourism industry and the tens of thousands of jobs that are supported by this industry. And I want to introduce Kelly Bass-Seibel from Sonoma County Tourism. Kelly, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So Kelly, I want to start this virtual activity out by simply asking you just what is Sonoma County Tourism as an organization, and how does it impact our local Sonoma County tourism industry?
So Sonoma County Tourism is Sonoma County's destination stewardship organization. We are typically known in other parts of the country as destination marketing organizations. Our entire mission is to promote Sonoma County as a tourist destination, particularly for those people coming into our area to stay overnight. And we are funded through marketing dollars that our hotels pay in to ensure that we have a centralized message. Our brand as Sonoma County is a lot stronger than our brand is individual cities. So we get to work on all of the, with all of the municipalities across Sonoma County to talk about how wonderful Sonoma County is to visit.
Well, my next question is kind of about that. What is it about our tourism industry that is so important to us?
Sure. Well, it is really the fabric of the economy in Sonoma County. We have lots of different industries, but tourism is one that employs 1 in 10 jobs. This is, I'm going to talk pre-pandemic numbers because that's what we have right now, but 1 in 10 jobs in Sonoma County is in tourism. And when you think of tourism, you might be thinking about your hotels, somebody who works at the front desk or somebody who is doing sales to groups, but you also need to think about the restaurants, retail, those limo drivers that are out there doing wine tours, our wineries that people come to visit, the bike tours that people do, and then there's also other industries that feed into that. The restaurants, and then all the food producers that bring food to those restaurants. So, it's really the fabric of who we are, and it affects. We all as residents of Sonoma County get to be tourists when we go visit a restaurant or go visit another part of the county, but we also, these businesses truly do depend on people coming in from out of the area to spend their money here to be able to survive.
Mm-hmm. You and I were talking before this, and it was sort of this realization that even though I've lived here all my life, I don't even take advantage of all of the things that we have here. Because it's almost, you don't think about doing the touristy things as a resident, right? But that is what makes us so unique is our shows, our restaurants, and our beautiful scenery and all of that. But that brings me to my next question. We kind of know how we're perceived within the county. I'm really curious to know, how are we perceived outside of the county and really to the rest of the world?
Sure. So we're a really special place. You're totally right. I think when you live here, one of the reasons people choose to live here is because of all the things that we have. But if you've lived here your entire life, you may not realize why we're so special. Very few parts of the country can you go, we know about our natural resources, but very few parts of the country can you go and be at the ocean and the redwoods. But at the same time, being a destination that has world-class entertainment, when you think about, Transcendence Theater and Broadway Under the Stars or the Green Music Center and the type of musical acts that they attract. And then you layer on top of that, the wine industry, which is typically how people learn about us. We have our neighbors in Napa that people do think of when they think of the wine country, but Sonoma County, we were the wine region of the year in at the end of 2019 and 2020, we were named the wine region of the year. So people do come here typically, they put their toe in, for the wine, but when they get here, they realize that we have an industry that goes beyond wine. And I'd be really remiss if I left out the culinary arts. That is such an integral part of who we are as a community, that farm to table, the fact that it is more common to find a farm to table restaurant in Sonoma County than to find a chain restaurant is really, really unique. A lot of other tourist destinations, you're going for one reason. If it's an amusement park, or you're going to go and you're going to sit next to a lake, or you're going for excellent hiking. We're so lucky that not only do we have the outdoors, we have the food, we have the wine, we have the wellness around the spas, and all of the different pieces of wellness that when you think of Sonoma County. So it's very diverse in terms of what we have to offer, and that is what makes us incredibly unique.
And so when it comes to that message, how does Sonoma County tourism help shape that message? And it's, I feel like how do you refine such a broad industry, right? Like such a broad region.
So Sonoma County Tourism, we're a marketing organization. When I look at my team of colleagues, we're made up of two teams. We have a team that is marketing, that's our largest team. And so those folks work, they're public relations professionals. They are content creators. They manage social media. If you go to visit, if you find Sonoma County on Instagram, that's our Instagram account. And we also have a team of group business development professionals who are out there enticing weddings and conferences and meetings to come to Sonoma County. When I talked about the uniqueness of our destinations, I talked about all those things that we have. We had to figure out some way to brand that, right? What is really what does that say about who we are? And so Sonoma County's brand is Life Opens Up. We're very, very fortunate that was our brand pre-pandemic, and we're going to be able to really showcase that post-pandemic. But it encapsulates all of those things I talked about. So we don't have a brand that's just focused on food or on wine or on outdoors, but truly wanting to showcase that entirety of who we are. And when you think about you think about the wine industry, someone comes here for wineries. Oftentimes, they're either going to be at that winery pairing their wine with really excellent food, or they're going to be talking to that, the tasting room person or the winemaker about the great meal they're about to go enjoy. And then they could be at that restaurant enjoying this world-class meal, and they start talking to their server about the best hike. And they're out there on the best hike, and they're hearing from somebody who works the gate at the parks about some amazing bike tour they can do. So it really is, people come here for one reason typically, and then realize when they're here that there's just no way that you can take advantage of all that we have to offer in just, in a short stay. So that's how we talk about who we are. Life opens up, and you might come for one reason, but you're going to stay for something else. And then we also really encourage, there's so many pockets of Sonoma County. So what someone might do in downtown Petaluma is going to be completely different than what they might go do if they're going to go out to the coast. And so we like to talk too about all the unique parts that make up our community.
That is one thing like I said, I've lived here all my life, but I've noticed how each area within Sonoma County has a different feel. It's a different look, it's a different feel, different types of restaurants. And it's exciting to, I live in Santa Rosa. Every once in a while, I might want to go to Petaluma, or I might want to go to Healdsburg, or all the way to Sonoma. And it's just, each one feels like a completely different area, but it's all wrapped up into this feeling of Sonoma County. So you were mentioning this marketing that Sonoma County Tourism has done, and this message. I want to play a commercial that you guys did. I think you said it ran on NBC.
It ran on NBC. It ran over the summer. So you have to remember, when the shelter-in-place order went in place in March of 2020, we were not open for leisure travel until June 19th of 2020. So that was, 3 months where our hotels were shut. Our restaurants were doing takeout orders for locals. So this ran the end of May, beginning of June, when we knew that we were getting closer to being able to welcome visitors back into Sonoma County.
Okay, I'm going to play this video. Before I do that, though, I do want to point out we are getting some questions on the chat. We will get to those in just a second, but hang with us and we'll watch this video first.
While you're looking, Brandon, I'll just mention, one of the things with advertising that was been particularly difficult in this last year is also wanting to be mindful of the pandemic. And so one of the things that during the same time that this was running was we were really working with our local chambers of commerce and other organizations across the county to show a message of safe travel. So knowing that not only do we want visitors to be safe when they come here and follow our rules and regulations that might be different from where they're coming from, but then also asking, our businesses to ensure that they're in compliance as well. And so, a piece that has been really challenging in terms of marketing is we typically are really arms open and wanting to welcome everybody. And this last year it's been challenging to really manage the pandemic with and safety, and really wanting we put safety first above everything else.
Yeah, which is super important in order to make people feel comfortable with the area in general. So I was able to bring it up. I'm not sure why it wasn't showing me the option originally, but we're just going to watch this 30-second commercial, and it'll give us an understanding of the type of marketing that is played to those outside our area.
For generations, Sonoma County has been the beautiful backdrop for countless celebratory toasts. A stunning yet down-to-earth place where travelers and locals alike find inspiration to commemorate all of life's moments. Despite the obstacles to physical connection that we experience today, we're still together, just in spirit. We look forward to toasting again, together, in person, when the time is right. We'll save you a seat.
So, that is just such a nice small snapshot of, I think, what the marketing around Sonoma County is you have people just enjoying life outdoors, drinking wine, eating good food, beautiful scenery. I mean, it's just, we take it for granted because we live here sometimes, but really to the outside world, I mean, that's an incredible looking destination.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was all footage that we had shot, right around our brand launch. It had been, so it's footage we were able to pull from stock. We put, NBC worked with us to put it together. They were incredibly generous with giving us, time that we couldn't afford because TV is very expensive. And, it also, in the voiceover, was actually one of our staff members who has a great radio and TV voice that, he was willing to do the voiceover work for us. So that was a very homegrown commercial.
So no Super Bowl commercial anytime soon?
No, and it's funny. So we played the NBC clip because it's visual, and in this format, I think it really does showcase what we do very well. But our primary marketing right now is done through, right now we're not spending money on marketing, but our recovery plan, when it really is safe to travel, and we're in compliance with state orders, because right now they're asking that people don't travel beyond 120 miles of where we live. But when it is safe to travel again, and it will be, the majority of our marketing money does get spent on social media, on website targeting ads, and on, we do a lot of email specific targeting as well. And then we also work heavily with the media. So we have a PR team, and they've got great media relations. So it's interesting. And every time I bring this up, people are a little surprised. But one of the things when we do research, people come to Sonoma County based off of influencers, like social media influencers, more than almost any other destination in the country. So when you look at, how are people influenced to come here? A lot of times people will say for other destinations, oh, I saw an ad or I searched, and that is important here too, but influencers play a much bigger role here than in other places. So we work, we bring journalists into the area. We also bring influencers in and work with our partners so that they're showcased. And that has got a great return on investment for us in terms of dollar spend versus TV, because TV you have to run a lot of to get an impression that sticks. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
My next question is, I'm going to wrap up the next question that I was going to ask you and mix it with a question that we have on our chat.
Sure.
I was going to ask you if you can discuss the different industries that fall under the hospitality and tourism ecosystem. But within that question, I also want to address one that's on our chat, which is, can you also maybe give some examples when you're talking about those different industries that fall under this ecosystem? What are some examples of some pretty good entry-level positions for high school students? Because really, this video is for those students in high school who are starting to explore careers. And right now, we know it's a tough time for tourism. But by the time that the students are graduating and starting to look for jobs, I feel like our tourism is going to be picking back up, if not, depending on when they graduate, if not completely rolling again. And so maybe you can discuss the different aspects of the ecosystem and then also some of those entry-level jobs within that.
Sure. So the majority of the industry is people facing. So if you think about when you check into a hotel, when you go to a restaurant and, with your server, and when you go into a store and interact with a clerk, so hotels, tour operators, restaurants, retail establishments. But beyond that, there are also, I mentioned earlier, those suppliers for those industries. So, it's the people you don't see too. So like if there's a linen company that supplies linens for a hotel, they're also part of the tourism industry. We use the word hospitality here versus tourism because that's truly who we are as a community. We are hospitable people. It is, we're not a big resort that people are coming to visit. They're coming to visit Sonoma County as a community and all the things that make us so wonderful. In terms of entry points for high school students, it's actually probably one of the best industries for entry-level jobs. You think about your hostess at a restaurant or your server. When you go to hotels, your front desk clerk. Some of the, retail, working as a cashier in a store, all of those are entry points into the industry. There are two huge advantages right now to looking for an entry-level job in hospitality. One is that particularly in hotels, there's room for growth. So, when you talk to somebody who is a general manager of a hotel today, generally they started at the front desk and worked their way up. And there's lots of different places in a hotel that you can work. There's sales and there's, concierge, which is really working with a guest. But a lot of the front desk clerks are going to be people that are in high school, coming right out of high school, and in like the first, it might be in college as well. The other advantage in particular for our local Sonoma County high school students, most of the workforce that is guest facing in the last year has been furloughed or laid off. We are at the highest unemployment rate through this pandemic. And that sounds awful and scary, and it absolutely is. And my heart goes out to all of the families that have been affected by this. Everybody in the hospitality industry has been affected by the pandemic. But in talking to some of our local managers of both hotels and restaurants, one of the things they said is when they're reopening, they're actually being challenged right now to find a workforce because oftentimes people who were in those roles have moved on. They found a job in another industry. And so when it's time to reopen and come back, they're no longer available, or they've moved out of the area. So a lot of the hotels, as they will be rehiring and will be beefing up their workforce. And you've got to remember, summer is huge for tourism in Sonoma County. It's a really perfect time to get your foot in the door. There are a lot of restaurants and hotels that are going to be looking to hire entry-level employees.
Yeah, I also think it's important to point out that those types of jobs generally lend you some of the most important soft skills 100%. That you need to move on to anything. And I'll use myself as an example. I did 12 years in customer service before kind of going into the more traditional office job. And when I was applying for this office job, this is where we actually first met when I started working at the chamber. Originally I thought I was underqualified for this position, but the person who hired me specifically pointed out that they really appreciated all of the customer service experience that I had, because it meant that I was able to work with people. I was able to communicate well. And those are some of those key skills that would need to take me through into this job. And so they actually pointed it out to be one of the reasons I was hired. And so that goes to being a front desk clerk at a hotel, or a host or server at a restaurant, or anything along those lines. It gives you those core soft skills that you're going to need to move on to any other job. And really what it comes down to is the communication, the ability to work with others, interact with customers, etc.
You took the words out of my mouth, but you're 100% correct. Even the U.S. Travel Association has talked about, when they talk about workforce development, it truly, hospitality, you truly are learning those soft skills, that those are the ones, you don't leave behind when you leave the job. You take them with you. And truly, those are the ones that you hear employers saying that they desire. Oftentimes you can teach the skill, but you can't teach the ability to be kind to others, to provide that great customer service. And so if someone's already got that training, and that's ingrained in how they treat others, it makes them a lot more hireable. So it's the soft skills you learn are just invaluable.
Yeah. So when we're talking about all these different aspects of the tourism industry, I mean, we mentioned some of the obvious ones like hotels, restaurants, but I feel like it's worth mentioning that there are some that we might not think about as well. So it could be like a bike tour company, right? Hot air balloons, or something along these lines. Are there any other, just to give all these students that are watching, any other examples that you can give that are not within what we would normally think of hospitality and tourism, but completely are a part of that ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, when there's right along the lines of that bike tour, I was just thinking there's a bunch of kayak tour companies, but what's really inspiring about this industry too is that people find a niche or a passion, whether it be in food or if it's in the outdoors, and then they're entrepreneurial and are able to come up with a business around it. So, there's everything from your kayak tours or your horseback riding tours, but then there's also, there's food tours out there. There are people who do, I keep saying tours, there's other things too, but there are people who really get to know the purveyors that are out there, the people providing the food, and will do, elaborate food tours. And then the other piece is the events industry. And the events industry, so in Sonoma County, we're not going to have big conferences or conventions typically. We just don't have the hotels to house those. We don't have a big convention center, but we do have a sweet spot for luxury meetings. So companies who are maybe doing a retreat of like 40 to 60 people. And then for weddings, we're a huge destination wedding location. So there's all the folks that support the wedding industry, whether it be a tent company, the DJs, the rental companies that support like the tables and chairs and dance floors, the catering companies, the photographers. Yes, people here, do get married and use all the services too, but oftentimes, particularly in Sonoma County and locations kind of like ours, there is an entire industry that really does cater to destination weddings and events.
Yep. Yeah, and a couple others to point out. I mean, we're known for our natural beauty in the area, and so anybody who is taking a part in our natural resources, whether it's our beaches or our redwoods, I mean, those are all critical. We did mention wine, but there's so many jobs within the wine industry, right? Whether you're on the customer facing side or whether you're in the winemaking side. Our downtowns, we have several downtowns throughout Sonoma County in the different areas, and they all look different, right? Whether you're a restaurant or a retail shop, even there, those are important. Artists that might make the art that is either painted a mural on a Petaluma building side, or you build a sculpture, museums, all of that stuff. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is not only a draw for people here to bring them from outside the area in, but like all are a part of this ecosystem. Whereas, like you said before, if somebody comes for one, they will usually do some of those others as well.
Yeah, and they also come back because they come for one and they realize that there is way more to see here. We are fortunate with our neighbor that oftentimes people go to Napa to taste wine. They'll come and spend one day over in Sonoma County as part of that trip, and then they'll make their next trip in Sonoma County because they realize how much there is to do here. And we work really hard at Sonoma County Tourism to showcase, beyond the wine and beyond the food, but all of the other things that you could do, the different art events that we have and all of that. So we're a pretty special place to live.
And it's worth mentioning too that I think on Thursday I'll be doing a virtual activity with a handful of folks that put on some big events. But we have a lot of big events here that are big draw, right? Like Country Summer at the fairgrounds, or Ironman, which is a very big triathlon people come from around the world for. And then there are ones that are really unique to our area, like an artisan cheese festival or Wine Road. There's just so much that is uniquely Sonoma County feeling, and only our area, really, only wine country can really provide that kind of event, and people come for that. We had another video that we wanted to show, just a little bit longer. I think it's like a minute or so, but I think it also will show kind of what we're talking about, right, all in one video. So as you said before, the life opens up is a perfect tagline to have had before and during and after this whole pandemic.
I feel pretty lucky. We're pretty lucky about something that's going to be that. So yeah.
And I want to end with one more thing that I think we are lucky about, which is something that you had mentioned to me that I hadn't really thought about before, but it's that how because of the kind of tourism destination that we county means that we are going to likely open up earlier than the rest of California. And I'm hoping that maybe you can kind of talk a little bit more about that and why you think that.
Sure. So when we look at all of the data across the country about tourism's comeback from this pandemic, we did have some international travelers, primarily, pre-pandemic, primarily people who were in San Francisco for some sort of convention or meeting, and then they would spend a couple days here. But that was not the primary base of our business. We really do thrive off of our direct flight market into Santa Rosa and then our drive market in California. And research about the comeback, they're saying drive market's going to come back first. So, we do know that we have lots of day visitors from the Bay Area and we appreciate them coming, but really what we want is those overnight stays, because those tend to be people who are going to be kinder travelers when they're here, more mindful of our environment. That's incredibly important to us. Just better behaved visitors than someone who's just coming up for the day. But we also are, because we live in California, we have an incredible drive market. We have the entire Bay Area and we have Sacramento. We know that right now people are seeking that opportunity to be outdoors and to be able to be in a place where they feel safe. We know urban markets like San Francisco are going to recover more slowly than an area like us where people can come and be outside and be socially distanced from folks. You saw in that video that we're pushing out when we're featuring those in the service industry, we're showcasing masks and mask wearing because that's very important for a traveler to feel safe going into a destination. And then as we open up a little bit more, we will start doing direct market to our direct flights, particularly Los Angeles and San Diego. And the state as a whole is going to be pushing a campaign called Calling All Californians. So we know we're so lucky to live in California where there's so many unique places to visit that our recovery will be fastest if we ask Californians to vacation in California first. So we're really, really well positioned for that. I mean, I know a lot of folks from Sonoma County have gone up to Tahoe over the winter. The folks that are in Tahoe are going to, be spending their summers in places like ours where we have fantastic weather out of the coast.
Yeah. And I've even heard stories anecdotally, but I've heard stories of how once California loosened up their restrictions, suddenly the hotels almost actually started filling up again because people were looking to get out, but needed a way to do so where they don't have to be around people. So, as the example I would give is Timber Cove off on the coast. It I guess was completely packed, like almost immediately. So we can already start to see it, right? Just where people are looking for a destination to get away from their maybe normal lives where they're sheltering in place and want to get out for or a week or longer, and they need to go somewhere where there's just not a lot of people around them so they can still be safe. So
yeah, our vacation rentals and our hotels that are not necessarily big, are not our meeting hotels, are the ones that are going to recover the fastest.
Great. Well, I'm looking at our chat. It doesn't look like questions, so I think that's a good way to wrap up. Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and talk about what Sonoma County tourism does and the overall tourism industry.
Thank you.